Well, now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. Dr. Constance Ikwoku, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Yolanda?
Good, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, baby.
Always a delight, and I don't know if I should just whisper it again that it's Friday.
No need, we know already. It is.
It's not complete if Benga doesn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you're very happy. It's the end of the week.
Absolutely.
All right, let's wrap it up for you. Let's look at those stories that are shaping the headlines or the agenda today. Kicking off with this day newspaper. Prominent in newspapers are stories on domestic, political, and policy reporting around budget presentation, political appointments and confirmations, state police, security and civil society issues amid reopened unity schools. Sports-related headlines including Nigeria's formal petition to FIFA over alleged ineligible players in the World Cup qualifier defeat. Overall, the front pages blend diplomacy, security, governance, and economy as core national narratives today. Now, let's look into this day. This daily story reflects on the confirmation of those 64 ambassadorial nominees whose names were sent to the Senate. The long-running discourse on state police has come into focus again as the president at the All Progressives Congress Party caucus declared that state police will become a reality in Nigeria. The window story takes us to Zambia, where a dispute involving Nigerian investment firm BONI and Zambia's financial authorities is raising concerns over investor protection. Vanguard newspaper headline is about incoming bosses of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission promising comprehensive reforms in the oil sector. Lawyers say altering tax laws through official gazetting is illegal, as House of Representatives constitutes committee to probe that matter. The House also supports a 2-year jail term, 5 million naira fine for vote buyers and sellers as part of electoral reforms. And Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority grows assets to $3 billion. Daily Independent has gone with the president promising the creation of state police and local government autonomy. These are two contentious issues that are yet to be laid to rest. On corruption, court dismisses former Attorney General Abubakar Malami's bail application. He's been in EFCC custody. The president will present the 2026 budget to the National Assembly today, and we're looking forward to that. Leadership newspaper, House of Reps okays electronic transmission of results. And the author of the latest book on former President Muhammadu Buhari claims that a cabal exists in the present administration of President Bola Tinubu. And Governor of Rivers State, Sim Fubara, quoted as saying that he wasn't really a member of the PDP. Moving on to New Telegraph newspaper, which writes about oil price politics, where marketers are said to have faced a sudden loss of 34 billion naira following Dangote's price slash. And Nigeria apologizes as detained aircrafts and crew are released in Burkina Faso. The Punch newspaper this morning, House of Reps probe tax law tweaks as PDP demands suspension. And then sad news as a South African police has shot a Nigerian man dead at a traffic stop. 4 traffic police officers have been arrested in connection with that killing. And court orders Abubakar Malami's further detention in EFCC. Now let's move to the international headlines. UK newspapers this morning are dominated with a blend of economic unease, democratic scrutiny, and global crisis response as main narratives. In the Daily Star, a poll shows 1.8 million Britons expected to spend Christmas Day alone. This reflects public concern over rising loneliness and festive pressures on society amid the cost of living contest. The Guardian newspaper focuses on new photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, showing quotes from Vladimir Nabokov's novel Lolita, written on women. This highlights ongoing cultural legal debates about abuse, exploitation, and high-profile offenders. Daily Mail says Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is accused of running scared of voters amid plans to cancel local elections. The Times newspaper points to millions of voters who may have local elections delayed to 2027, raising political tensions. And Jewish groups are alarmed and accusing the UK police of not committing to arresting a group shouting, "Globalize the Intifada." Troubling times ahead. Newspaper writes about Bank of England cutting base interest rate to 3.75% amid economic headwinds. And in Daily Express, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch claims only her party can handle Putin's threats. Financial Times reports that Keir Starmer has named Christian Turner as new ambassador to the UK, or to the US rather. Globally, multiple newspapers continue to feature the Sydney Bondi Beach terror attack prominently on their front pages. Also, EU leaders are racing to reach a deal on Ukraine. Now, let's break down what the stories mean for everyday citizens. Returning to this day newspaper, ambassador's confirmation and state place. These are long-running stories, and much has been said about these news items in the past couple of weeks.
Okay. Just 2 weeks ago, the 19 Northern Governors met, and the major corner pictures of that concern was religious intolerance, the issue of state policing, and also the need to ban mining activities. So I think we've rang it so loud to the highest octave that Nigeria is long overdue for state policing. When you look at the police community ratio, we run far. The president has made significant reforms in that area by calling for a sweeping and mass recruitment of additional 50,000. There is a need for us to understand our story. There is a need to understand that peculiar terrain in which these bandits find so comfortable as a safe haven for hideouts. So the need to be speedy in terms of legislating the state policing cannot be overemphasized.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I wanted to throw in it was actually very different from what you were talking about.
Indeed.
You had spoke about the state police, and it's something that people have been calling for a long time. I like that you mentioned that it's something that has been repeated over and over and over again. But I wonder why the delay? Why is this taking so long to take effect? Is it possibly because there are discussions on how it's going to be held, on the procedure for how it's meant to be done? Because I'm not too sure. It seemed like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, very poignant question. I think initially there was the sub-nationals were experiencing a shortfall. Sometimes they were battling with pains and sustaining recurrent expenditure. But now that we have a better, a more efficient spending at the sub-national level, many of the state governors have resonated that readiness to handle state policing. Because one of the background controversy on state policing was during the early, after colonial era, the early pre-independence era, state policing were used by native authority for political gains. But I think now, when we do the cost-benefit analysis of having a state police and not having a state police, I think that is just the sure way to go, regardless of its collateral risk that comes with it. I think we will deal with that when we get to that
there.
point.
That's right.
The sense is that the major issue was about the will to dismantle
Indeed.
the centralized system of governance in Nigeria. We know that in paper we practice a federal system of government, but in practice and in reality it is not so. So the conversation of those who favor regional system of government or regional style of government and practicing true federalism is that if you have a police force at the regional levels or states, even if we don't fall back to regional, we have 36 states. If you have state police, then the state governors are able to respond fast, and speedily to issues of security, especially now that we now have multiple fronts of security challenges in the country. And of course, for those that favor the continued hold of the federal, of the center, you know, they don't want it to happen. So, like I said, this has been a conversation for so many years, but now we've come to the point that it looks like we might have to do it, given you know, the realities of today's Nigeria. Yeah. All right, let's see Punch newspaper. Reps probe tax law tweaks. PDP demands suspension. We know that the House of Representatives on Thursday, which was yesterday, excuse me, constituted an ad hoc committee to probe the alleged discrepancies in the tax reforms passed by the Parliament and the official gazetted copy currently in circulation across government agencies. This was as the People's Democratic Party demanded that the federal government further shift forward by 6 months the January 1, 2026 takeoff of the new tax law. The opposition party said this became important following these alleged alterations. The PDP added that these 6 months would allow for sufficient enlightenment campaigns on the new act. The party also said that this criminal act of inserting unenacted sections into the laws can erode public trust in parliamentary enactments. One Chile Ibawa was quoted as saying that this new tax plan must not take off now. Its implementation must be suspended immediately. This is not tax reform. It is a weapon fashionized against economic well-being and social security of suffering Nigerians. You cannot tax hunger. You cannot tax poverty. And you cannot tax people into prosperity. All right, so that was his observation or reservation about these new tax laws. And a few points to touch on. Also have the same view.
Yes, I agree. A few points to touch on. I think for a while now we've been speaking continually about how ready is Nigeria for these new tax laws. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday and they were, you know, very apprehensive about the laws coming into effect in January, and it started a discussion where we were both wondering, you know, is there any clarity to this? Do we all know what is going on besides what has been stated? Yes, we know that January is coming and these laws are coming, but do we really know as the everyday person how this affects each of us and our businesses? What I found interesting about what the Senate said is, you know, at this point, are we just finding out that this gazetted, these gazetted versions are not, you know, tying in with what was agreed by the National Assembly? And where we need clarity as well is, what exactly are the areas where there are discrepancies? Is it the laws themselves? Is it the regulations around them? We need clarity in knowing exactly where the problem is in what they agreed on and what was gazetted. So I think that's a part that we are all curious to find out where exactly was the problem. But indeed, we do look forward to a change. It's good to see that the PDP is, you know, standing up and saying, look, we need 6 more months. And I couldn't agree more. I think we actually need not just the 6 months, but we need public dissemination of information. Let people really understand what these laws mean.
I think in addition, there is an established pattern that is very spurious and I find rather disturbing, and that's knee-jerk approach to very sensitive issues of governance. We remember that this administration started with that bold standpoint of subsidy must go, and we saw the ripple effects of the repercussions. Thank you, Yolanda, of that bold reforms, that it really hits hard on the cost of living. So I think that the sentiment that is surrounded, that is prevailing this issue of tax reform, in which the Federal Inland Revenue Service will now become the National Revenue Service, is basically the impact it will have on the cost of living. Likewise, the opposition people are saying that you cannot tax hunger. But so the burden there also lies on the stakeholders, the gatekeepers of this tax reform, to come out and enlighten Nigerians, because there seems to be a difference between what the Chairman Presidential Committee of Tax and Fiscal Reform is saying. When you listen to him, you almost endorse the tax reform almost immediately. But when you hear what the federal government is saying from the Minister of Finance, you know that there is some flies in this ointment. And I think that most importantly, governance should be very serious, because you can't be having something different in the gazette, in the government gazette, and you are having something different in what was being passed by the National Assembly. I think that government should wake up to clear all those tiny little details, because the tax reform is the corner piece of the nation's revenue drive.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so,
well said.
In a poverty-ridden country like Nigeria, this is a delicate trade-off. Because on the one hand, we are looking for revenue to fund our budget. We saw that a news item about the over 30 trillion shortfall in revenue gap. So part of what the government is trying to do is to widen the tax base, so that quite a bit of our revenue will come from taxation within the country, which is a legitimate argument, and every country does that. On the other hand, you have to look at the prevailing realities in the country. You know, the other question also is, when you get those tax revenues, are you able to lift people out of poverty? Because the questions always surround the management of the resources you have already, not to talk about the tax ones that will come into the pot. So these are questions that are swirling around this new tax reform. Poorly designed or aggressive enforced taxes on the people is something that Nigerians don't want to see. They want to have a trust in a government that collects taxation from them, but uses those taxation effectively and provides the services that are needed within the country. But also, talking about those unauthorized alterations, the fact is that the House has now set up a committee that shows the seriousness of the issue, because when it was initially raised, we thought that, okay, this is just something that was done without, but you can see that it's a serious issue, so they're going to be probing it. And how did it happen in the first place? How can you be making alterations without following due processes? It means that if someone did not highlight it, the law would have continued in that regard.
Absolutely.
So it also shows, you know, gaps and failures and weaknesses within the system that need to be taken care of. It's a dangerous precedent, you know, that, you know, if it was not highlighted by this particular person, this particular lawmaker, it would have been a serious issue for Nigeria. Let's see another story. Vanguard newspaper, Electoral Act, reps back 2-year jail term. 5 million naira fine for vote buyers and sellers. And Leadership newspaper as well, reps okay electronic transmission of results. The stiffer penalties are to enhance transparency and credibility of elections. And then the new provision also says transmission of results must be done simultaneously with physical collation. Indeed, we did need these electoral reforms ahead of 2027, don't we?
Okay, now we've talked about, we've seen the major concerns from what was raised by the House of Representatives, the section 22, the section 60, subsection 3, that talks about the importance of the INEC election viewing portal, and also this the issue of the conduct of presiding officers at the polling points. But I think there's a need for more sincerity and concrete action, not just laying the framework for democratic practice, but also deepening institutional pillars that would drive this reform. Because in all this discussion, there is a clear absence of the Electoral Offenders Commission that would implement those things, that will see that, okay, you've run foul of the law, and bring you to justice, bring you to book. They've not really mentioned that, because I followed the report from the House of Representatives. We've seen that, okay, you are planning to criminalize the issue of voter selling, voter buying, and all these things in your section 2, okay, increasing the fine from 500,000 to 5 million naira. We've seen the difference also in the use of the INEC election viewing portal, that you are now making it mandatory, even though there is a kind of secret insertion that everything still depends on the discretion of the INEC. So I think there should be more serious. We need to take a stand. We need to stand up for what we believe in. We need to tell the world our own story. We need to do our best to safeguard the sanctity of the ballot. I think
have
that's
you
the
thought about enforcement? Have you thought about enforcement? Because
that's why I said the Electoral
Offenders when you look at these offenders, most of them are foot soldiers sent by politicians. So if you are going to set precedent, or if you are going to make sure that these laws are actually implemented, make examples of the politicians themselves that are the ones sending foot soldiers into the field. Because any no-name person can be arrested, prosecuted, and nobody knows about that. It doesn't make much difference. But if the big names are actually arrested and prosecuted because there is a link to them in regard to vote buying, then that will make a big example and say, you cannot continue to do this.
In fact, sorry, I think the world criminal justice principle is based on that understanding of deterrence. Like you said, just to emphasize on it, once we've been able to see those influential people brought down, it will send a lot of message. The body language, like people would like to say, would really be very instructive. You wanted to say something.
Yes, I think you've pretty much preempted the entire, you know, the real basis of the points that have been made. But another bottleneck that I see, not with the law that is they're trying to put in place, but you know, the technological side of things, the logistics. How feasible is it in reality? You know, we have really serious connectivity issues. We have issues with our networks. How are we going to make this new system work efficiently, especially in areas that are not urban? Even in the urban areas themselves, we have these technological issues. So now, how are we going to be able to counter these sorts of things in rural areas? It's going to be quite difficult.
Right.
Yes, putting right. I agree to that. I agree.
Let's take Daily Independent. Tinubu presents the 2026 budget today, and as he lays the budget in front of the National Assembly, it will kick off discussions about, you know, previous budgets that we've been running. It's been a chaotic 2 years with budgeting in the country. What sticks out the most is that huge shortfall of the 2025 budget. Revenue projection was 40.8 trillion naira, meant to finance the 54.9 trillion naira budget. The actual revenue that came in was about 10.7 trillion naira, leaving that over a 30 trillion shortfall. But also 14.1 trillion was said to have been borrowed this year alone already to cover the budget shortfall. So the 2026 budget will be judged less by ambition, because we can be ambitious and say we want to do this, we want to do that. It will be judged more by credibility of whether the revenue projections are realistic, where are they going to get the deficit financing, what are the spending priorities, do those spending priorities reflect the hard choices rather than political comfort? Because as it is today, Nigerians want to see clear evidence that budget expenditure are translating into security, into infrastructure, jobs, and targeted social protection. A lot of expectations, you know, when he lays that budget.
Indeed, well said. And I think that we've been running a chaotic fiscal framework that would only lead to economic uncertainty, if you ask me. And there's a need to clear up those overlapping trends in our budget. We have the 2024 budget.
It's the first time we're having this.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very chaotic and very disturbing for me, because it just defies every, it's quite disingenuous, if you ask me, that it defies every sense of logic of national planning.
All right.
And you also see the federal government calling on agencies to refund 70% of the budget. So what happens to the contractors? What happens to the cost involved in all this? What happens to the capital budget in all this framework? So refunded 70%. So what? So how do you roll over this? How do you balance it? How do you, in fact?
I mean, the contractors have been complaining they haven't been paid for more than a year. Local contractors all over the country, they've protested at the National Assembly, they've protested elsewhere, they haven't been paid.
And we still have the forex exchange rate that is still relatively unstable, if you ask me. So how do you situate this in an ever-changing fiscal reality of the country?
All right, let's go to the international headlines. Daily Mail this morning, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is accused of running scared of voters amid plans to cancel local elections. There's a heated political row in the United Kingdom. Critics, including Nigel Farage, and some conservative figures argue that the Labour government's move to offer dozens of councils the option to delay election until 2027 and push inaugural mayoral contest to 2028 looks like an attempt to avoid electoral risk and manipulate democratic timing, especially as opposition parties are gaining ground, which they say undermines core democratic norms.
Now
interesting times.
Let's look at where this all began. We have this plan for 60+ local councils to delay their voting from 2026 to 2027. Wow. Now, Keir Starmer's administration is saying that this is basically administrative issues. There's no reason for concern. We're just putting our ducks in a row. You should not be worried. But the opposition, on the other hand, is saying that Keir Starmer is afraid because he knows what is to come from these votes. But, you know, Keir Starmer and his administration are still standing strong. He has had a very tough 1 year so far. It feels like he's been in power forever at this point in time. But it has been a constant back and forth with him for a while now. But now the question is, I think, are Brits ready to, you know, continue with Keir Starmer? Because there are these votes that are coming up early next year. Do they still want to keep him in power? Has he lost all credibility? We don't know. I think time can only tell as this is an unfolding story.
So, but in all of this picture, let me ask you, do you think Kemi Badenoch poses a sufficient destructive influence to Keir Starmer?
I think Dr. Constance has the answer to that question.
I mean, there's a lot going on in the UK. It's not only the conservative Kemi Badenoch, it's also Nigel Farage.
Yes.
But when you
Nigel Farage is a bigger threat.
When you analyze what's going on, Nigel Farage, his party seems to be more of a threat.
Yes, that's right.
To the Labour Party, because the Conservatives, they've just left power yesterday, the other day. So voters are already tired of them and voted them out of power. Kemi, we don't even see him leading the Conservatives to the election. Nigel Farage seems to be more of a threat. However, a day is a big time in the life of a political party. Anything can happen. We just have to wait and see.
That's right.
All right, those were your headlines for today.